Well, good evening. There's going to be a lot of talking in this video, I think. Uh, try to show you some things, some of the animals as I go here, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do for today's video earlier. And I was answering responses from the last video. And came to me what I wanted to talk about. The difference between capitalism and crony capitalism. I'm a free market capitalist. And I think that, there should be very, very few government regulations put on business. Now, the government should be, and I'm not sure this should fall to the federal government, but there should be some regulation on, workers' rights. Because, businesses can definitely, if not regulated, the greed of money will certainly drive some people to abuse workers' rights. But when there's just a minimal influence government should have on business. And there should be minimal influence business has on government. What we got right now, our current political and business climate, is crony capitalism. The government's willing to help you out if you got enough money to support a re-election campaign or to help out on some pet project. Most of the laws that get passed anymore do not benefit the small business. That would be why these large corporations excuse me, my sinus is draining bad today. But that's why these large corporations are for a lot of the legislation that we see, because they can afford it and it eliminates some of the smaller competition. Okay. I was saying, these large corporations, they can afford lobbyists, and they can afford to pay for some extra stuff, especially if that extra stuff helps their bottom line. And you're saying, Harry, how can paying for extra stuff improve your bottom line? Well, here's how that works. They get the government to pass some sort of law. It costs them 0.5% of their gross income. They just pass that off to the consumer, and the smaller business can't absorb that cost and can't afford to pass it on. So Okay, so there's all kinds of little uh, legislation. Some of it's pretty big that knocks the little guy out. He just can't afford it. And that's how it works. And that includes right now what's going on with the crony capitalism is what we've got going on right now with the solar and wind industry. They have convinced enough politicians and enough people that are vocal that they're going to save the planet by forcing people to use solar and wind energy. So, a lot of these politicians are invested in this technology. They're invested in the companies that are supposed to be developing this technology. So what they're doing is, passing laws to require it be used, and then they're out there telling people that we're going to save the planet by doing this. But when it comes to all of that, they're not really saving anything. I think that in some time, wind and solar will become a viable form of energy. Just not yet. Not on a massive scale like is needed. But they're going to push it. And it's causing problems, and it's going to cause more problems as we go. But, like I said, it's crony capitalism. It's the same way with the subsidies. I mean, here's the one that's going to make everybody mad. We subsidize pharmaceutical industry. Our government just hands them money. When they don't hand them money, which they do most of the time, but they also allow them to put drugs on the market without any liability. This recent vaccine that they tried to force everyone to get, the pharmaceutical companies have zero liability for that, for anything that can go wrong. Whether you believe in that vaccine or not, that should bother you. That these companies can't be held responsible for doing something that might hurt people. Not to mention the hypocrisy of it from our government, who tried to sue the gun manufacturers for the misuse of their products. They try to make it easy for someone to sue the government for misuse of a legal product. So, you know, it's just wrong, and it's a double standard. Uh, the United States government subsidizes the oil industry. Really? They complain about them all the time that they make too much money. Well, if they're making too much money, let's take away some of those subsidies. The National Football League, subsidized by the federal government. Not to mention what the states, cities, and counties do to keep these teams in their jurisdiction, so to speak. Really? If they can't make money, then maybe they ought to come up with a better product. Yeah, that was the thoughts on my mind. So, crony capitalism, not good. The government in our business, the way it is not good. If you're a follower, you've heard me talk about the problems with trying to sell good quality meat. I mean, this government is out of control. They just, I don't know. They're making decisions they know nothing about, whether it be solar energy, farming, whatever. They want to follow the advice of these huge corporations, Tyson, and all of the others. The majority of your food you get in the grocery store comes from about 8 companies, and it depends on what you're getting. So that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the consumer. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for farmers. It's just not a good way to do business. Ethan and I were talking. We were doing a lot of running around this afternoon, and we were talking kind of what the future may hold. And as y'all know, I got some ideas. I think we're in for that's what I said, you got to feed your bunny. Question. Anyway, that was me. Sorry, trying to make sense with the number one farmhand. But anyway, we were talking today while we was out running around, and things are going to get bad here. I'm sure of that, economically. And I was talking to him about how used to be every little community had a store and a butcher. They had your dry goods store, then you had a butcher, and and I was telling him, so well, I think that's probably going to be where we're headed back to. And I'm thinking that's what Dollar General believes too. I don't know. I don't have any connections with Dollar General, but they're putting in so many of them little stores everywhere, and a lot of it's good placement, really good placement. I think they're preparing for that. And it's good to know that there's a business out there that's preparing for that. unlike a lot of the bigger ones, you know. But anyway, I don't want to get into that right now. But then again, I wonder, just popped into my head, is Dollar General getting money from the government too? I don't know. Just, it seems the business gets so big and then and it's like, well, they're big enough, we got to help them now. But they don't want to help the American small business person because they can't afford to make campaign contributions or contribute to their foundation, their charitable being in quotes, foundations. So anyway, that's where a lot of our problem is just this crony capitalism, where you got to know somebody in the government and you got to grease the government's palm in order to get things done. And then if you don't have enough money, then you're in trouble. I mean, look at the Amos Miller case. There he was. He was making a living. He's probably making a profit, doing a little better than making a living, selling directly to the consumer. The consumer came to his farm. They saw how things were raised, and I'm assuming on this part that they could see how it was processed. Nobody got sick. Nobody that was buying from him complained. And I'm still not sure on that as to who complained, but they just about killed his livelihood. Now, a lot of people will say, well, he was trying to skirt the law and blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think he was trying to skirt the law. I think he was just trying to make a living in the best way he knew how. And in a way that he could, in a way that he knew how. You know what I'm saying? He knew how to raise animals. He knew how to butcher animals. Or at least he learned those skills or hired people that had those skills. And his customers loved what they were getting from him. But because the U.S. Department of Agriculture didn't have their fingers in it, they wanted to put a stop to it. Well, I think that's come to an end, and he's had to pay a fine. And, being someone not acquainted with the legal system, and I might have done the same thing he did. He signed and accepted that cease and desist order, and didn't understand what he was signing on. So, but it's just another example of the crony capitalism and the bloated bureaucracy stepping on a small farmer, a small businessman. He wasn't just a farmer, he was a businessman. So anyway, I guess I ought to wrap this up. I don't know how long this video is, and if y'all have watched this far, thank you. Hit that like and subscribe, and let's all look out for each other. Let's help each other when we can. Let's all pray. All right, I had to take a pause there because some things I had to do that required two hands. Yeah, just end all these subsidies. I mean, if we wasn't paying all these different companies to ensure that they made a profit all the time, probably cut taxes a little bit. Let's get smart with our money. I'm pretty sure myself that A lot of this money comes back to these politicians in the form of campaign contributions. And of course, one thing we can do to really slow a lot of that down, just term limits. Just you can't be a senator more than 2 terms, or a representative more than 2 terms. I mean, that's just the way it ought to be. Yeah, I think this crony capitalism, which subsidies fall into that category too, it should be illegal because it only helps a few. You know, I can tell you without any doubt that a lot of things would change if we got rid of a lot of these subsidies. Even in the farming industry, the bigger you are, the easier it is to get a subsidy. I don't want a subsidy. I probably could stay here on the farm if I was taking some grants. If I was filing for and receiving, you know, then you've got to do things the way the government wants it done then. And I don't think so. I want to do things the way I want done, not what the government thinks is okay. You know, I want to do what old Deuce there tells me is right for him. You know, by looking at his body condition and, you know, how he's acting. You know, same with Ruby here. Just like I said, less government. The less you get government involved, the better off you are. You know. She's growing. She ought to be. Startled her by moving my hand a little bit. Need to get her out of there. These guys over here are going to fulfill their destiny this week. We'll get them out of here. Rearrange this pen a little bit, get the feeder set back up correctly. And then we'll move. Start trying to get these separated over here. And I think once Ruby has her babies in their weaning age, we'll separate her out and bring her over here, cross her on Buddy. Yeah. We may be, I think we're too late, but we thought about doing the same with Boss Hog. And this little girl, I don't know unless somebody buys her, which I haven't been trying to sell her. Excuse me. Sinus pills are finally kicking in. Anyway, if we decide to keep Chunky Baby there, then we'll cross her on Buddy too. And then we have quite a few that we can cross back on Deuce. So, without inbreeding. Ruby should be having babies anytime, I'm thinking, but man, she's starting to back down a little bit. But anyway, that's what's going on here. And that was the thoughts on my mind.